indigenous communities, and whereby it's ruled or governed by the customs and the norms of these different communities. So you'll find that you'll have some changes on how the customary land is managed, depending on the community. So for example, when you go to the north, when you go to the east, when you go to southwest, you'll have some bit of differences. Now, compared to what they used to say earlier, you'll find actually people also own land individual on this customary land. We have communal, and then we have also jointly owned land on customary land. So the land use on customary land is majorly controlled by the heads, clan heads, elders, and so forth. So you'll find that actually to control how this land is managed, such people have to be put on board. Next, please. Next slide. So customary land tenure system has three main challenges that have been identified in the national land policy. One is that it doesn't provide security of tenure. You know, earlier when the communities were guaranteeing security and were not being compromised, it used to. But now these days, you'd find that now customary tenure without a documentation, we're having wars whereby the communities are being displaced. So you find that because of that, you do not have now a community which has lived very long in a particular area to basically continuously give protection or evidence of ownership. So we need documentation than relying on communities as it used to be. Please, back to the next slide. Go back a bit one. So it also impends advancement of land markets. Land uses are changing these days. You know, at the beginning, you used only to farm on the land, but now you need to access credit to cultivate on the land. So because of the changes of the land and issues like of compensation, when roads now pass your land, you find that actually you need documentation to utilize your land to get compensation. So you'll find that now customary tenure the way it is without being documented, you will have a challenge here. Then obviously discrimination against women. Though there are a few places we have visited whereby culturally also women actually have rights on land, but let's agree majority of our norms discriminate against women. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay. So women's land rights under the customary tenure system. So one way we have seen other speakers talk about this is that it's patriarchal in nature, that it's male dominated. Okay. So that's why when there is a fight for someone to have a male child so that you can pass on, for example, your property, which is most of the cases land. So this is a problem, and the women are being affected. Women are looked at as secondary land rights holders. Here we're looking at them as more of they own through men, mostly, as you have seen, to use the land and not necessarily to own. So they can't make decisions on sell or buy, but they can till, but also they have to get permission on what to till on the land. So women also are more prone to land grabbing and encroachment. Actually, people who do land grabbing and encroachment, if they notice that it's a woman who's owning the land, then they see a weakness, and actually they will go ahead and be aggressive in such situations. That's why you have seen that when you look at the percentage of land grabbings, mostly women are being victims. So obviously, then the last one is lack of access to justice. This is obviously because of many things, but most of the cases, finances, they can't access the expensive justice. And also, you'll find that they are not literate. So going to these judicial places when you're not literate is also a challenge, and they get intimidated. Next slide. So policy statements on customary land tenure system. So in the land policy, the state shall recognize customary land as to be at par with other different land tenure systems. That's mile freehold and leasehold. And it talks about establishment of a land registry for customary land. And the government shall by legislation protect the rights of to inheritance and the ownership of land for women and children. And then finally, the government shall ensure both women and men have equal rights on land. When? Before marriage, in marriage, after marriage, and also at succession. But you'll find that this is now favoring mostly only men and not women. Next slide. So the provisions of Customary Land in the Land Act 1998 is that to document this customary land, you can either apply for a CCO, you can convert your land to freehold, you can apply for communal land associations, or in addition to the National Land Policy, having a certificate, customary certificate of title. So obviously this customary certificate of title, maybe there's one thing which you can discuss later, is that it could have some challenges, because is this process going to be affordable? But if it's going to be expensive, as
to know the person who is acquiring their land on what terms, and this is what we had in Amuru. The engagement was not constructive enough to help the communities understand what is involved in the whole arrangement between the private investor and the government. So we had to ensure that the government sits down with the people, puts the stakeholders, all the stakeholders' interests on board, as well as the investors' interests, so that we find a balance, and we ensure that the community moves together with the proposed investment. The ministry has had a lot of lessons learned from all these examples that members have given, and we have taken lessons from them, and they have informed us, especially on our strategy on community engagement. One valuable lesson we have learned, as I said, is that if we don't engage early on, we lose that opportunity to have a constructive participation of everyone. And everyone is key, irrespective of the level they're at. We have brought on board traditional leaders. We have brought on board elders. We have brought on board landowners. We have brought on board people who use land users. We have brought on board the political leaders. We have brought on board, all stakeholders, religious leaders, and all people who have an influence and a say in the community are encouraged to participate in the entire process, so that we don't have a Kalangala or an Amuru somewhere that is persistent. And if you've observed, incidents of land grabs are reducing because we have also, in addition to our strategy on community engagement, we have strengthened the capacity of the land management institutions so that they don't bypass the community level. The district land boards and the area land committees, we have ensured that we strengthen their capacity, and we sensitize them on the need to have first understand whose land it is that they are allocating before giving it out. We don't want an investor to come waving a title and then sitting with the community. We want that title to come out of the community engagement process, so that the communities are on board and they willingly accept to have the investor acquire a title on their land. Otherwise, we are doing enough.
I think we've lost Vanessa. Maybe it must be an issue of internet, but as it takes a sip of water, kindly allow me to interact with our second panelist, who is Mr. James, who has done research of the things. So, Mr. James, what do you think? What do you think the government should put like measures,
Sorry, we are doing a lot. It may not be a common word. Okay. We emphasize their participants that we. Hello?
Yes, Abnasa. We had lost you.
You lost me. Yeah, sorry. I got a network interruption. I was concluding by saying that the government does not condone, neither does it encourage both local and foreign investors to acquire land without consulting the communities. There are acquisitions which are obvious, like a purchase from a registered owner when the land is unencumbered. But most of the large-scale investments we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of acres, which most times are occupied by, either bona fide and lawful occupants or by customary occupants on the land. And the bulk of these, as we have observed, are women. So the government, the ministry ensures that the information that is channeled between the investors and the communities is the information is clear, and it is shared among all the stakeholders, and all stakeholders at all levels are engaged to ensure that we don't have a scenario where land is appeared to be grabbed by a powerful investor against a very poor community or against a very weak community. So as a ministry, as I said, we have implementing our national strategy on community mobilization and engagement. In addition, we ensure that the laws are followed, the Land Act and our policy on land evictions. Our guidelines on evictions are also followed to ensure that no person is evicted from their land without their consent, involuntarily, so that we have an investor coming in and also acquiring this.
To tell community members about the obligations that come with the rights that they have. For instance, they need to pay annual ground rent. Marital rights, our CSO partners like UCOBAG and partners for community transformation, they train and use gender transformative approaches like training and sensitizing even male community members about spousal rights, the need to recognize or respect spousal consent. The awareness raising entails trainings or awareness on what rights do the occupants have with respect to exclusion of others, if one has such rights, control, and the liberty, the knowledge about which rights and what liberties they have in terms of enjoyment of tenure rights, as well as how they can, or which rights do they have with respect to dispossession. And we have been, some colleagues have been speaking about succession rights. So we look at, we rely on the existing legal and policy framework to create awareness with respect to that. And those numbers that you see on the left-hand side reflect how many female community members have attended awareness raising, 18,000 plus as of May this year. I mentioned that women only awareness raising, youth only awareness raising can also, boost these numbers of awareness and confidence in the women to express their concerns and to know their rights. I'll go next to alternative dispute resolution, and this is in line with the do no harm principle. We have reached those numbers, and you can see, because of the patrilineal nature of the Ugandan society, I think it's the same on customary as well as on Milo. Many more male participants report disputes, but also a significant number of those are female persons. And alternative dispute resolution mechanisms, once alternative dispute resolution options are available to female members, evidence is that, or the experiences show that women folk have been able to find a fora in which they can report domestic issues that impinge on their land rights. And the project, the ILGU project, has capacitated community paralegals or community legal volunteers, community members resident within the parishes and the villages who are go-to persons for those that have grievances, and then those persons either try to resolve, to mediate the disputes at the village level, and if they fail, they inform or document those disputes for reference to a sub-county established alternative dispute resolution committee. And I add there that these committees, the paralegals plus the sub-county established alternative dispute resolution committees, are an alternative to formal courts. So there's at least there's a first option before one thinks of litigation. And then there are an alternative to mediation committees which are yet to be reestablished. I believe that all of us here are well aware that the mediation committees, as specified in the legal and policy framework, are not functional at the moment, and alternative dispute resolution committees